I arrived at the Carroll County Courthouse a little after 5 a.m. and probably got one of the last seats available in the courtroom today. Today's witness, ISP forensic scientist Stacy Bozinovski, to discuss her DNA analysis of crime scene evidence. Most of the DNA collected came from Abby and Libby. There was some trace male DNA found, but it wasn't enough of a sample to make a DNA profile. Plus, it's not uncommon to find trace evidence because of shared surfaces, living with men, etc., Bozinovski testified. Crucially, there is no evidence that Richard Allen's DNA was at the crime scene, or any stranger's DNA for that matter. In a re-examination of the black hoodie Abby was wearing when she died, an unknown male's DNA profile was made, but it matched a laboratory employee. This points to possible evidence contamination during the process of analysis, and that evidence was then removed from the investigation looking for an unknown male sample. Prosecuting attorney James Luttrell ended his line of questioning asking if Bozinovski found any DNA of Richard Allen. To this, she said no. Did she find a DNA profile of any male? She said none suitable for comparison purposes. Previously, in opening statements, the defense has pointed to a strand of hair found in Abby's hand at the crime scene that does not match Richard Allen. Today, we can conclusively say that that hair came from Libby's sister, Kelsey German. Outside the Carroll County Courthouse, I'm Annie Kate, ABC 57 News.
Julian, you're absolutely right. Court just got out about 30 minutes ago. Like you said, we spent the morning session talking about DNA, what was and wasn't found at the crime scene. In the afternoon session, Julianne, we focused on the crime scene again with, once again, Patrick Cicero, a blood flow and blood pattern expert from the LaPorte County Sheriff's Office. Now, we heard him in pre-trial hearings, so we know a little bit about what he has to say. But something that really stuck out to me today, Julianne, is he showed us how Abby Williams's hands were up, kind of in a he called it a boxing position, right? And in crime scene photos, he demonstrated how when the sleeves were pulled back and you actually examined Abby Williams's hands at the crime scene, they were totally free from blood. The sleeves free from blood. This is something Patrick Cicero said he has never seen before. He said that the kind of cut she had to her neck would have taken some time to kill the poor girl, and it's unusual to see that she didn't reach for her neck, or that there must have been something else preventing her from reaching for her neck. So that's a big question mark there, something super interesting from testimony. We did have a court sketch artist in the room again today, so take a look at your screen. These are some of the sketches from today's testimony in the Richard Allen trial. Cicero went over crime scene photos and gave his analysis of what happens. He believes that Libby was mobile when she was first cut to her neck, but then after she finally died, he believes her body was dragged. The defense pushing on certain details, saying that there are not drag marks in the crime scene photos, and that the person that Cicero had not been recruited to help with the case until 2024. So he wasn't actually there in 2017. And that wrapped up his cross-examination. Now, one extra interesting thing to note, right before court got out today, the prosecution talked about a motion that they filed to admit new evidence into trial. This new evidence, they say, is Google search history from one of Richard Allen's emails. Of course, the defense was arguing against this, saying perhaps it wasn't just him with access to that account. So Judge Gall took that all under advisement. She will rule on that later. I'm going to be back here on ABC 57 News Night Team at 10 and 11 to recap all of today's testimony. A lot of details to get through today, so come back with me on Night Team tonight. But otherwise, we'll stay on top of this trial until a verdict is in. So stay with us online and on air. Reporting live outside the Carroll County Courthouse today, I'm Annie Kate, ABC 57 News.
ABC 57's Annie Kate recaps day 9 of the Delphi double murder trial.
I got to the Carroll County Courthouse just after 5 a.m. Monday morning. I'm pretty sure I got the last available seat in the courtroom. A sketch artist was here too. Prosecutors called ISP forensic scientist Stacy Bozinovski to the stand to discuss her DNA analysis of crime scene evidence. Most of the DNA collected came from the victims, Libby and Abby. There was some trace male DNA found, not necessarily uncommon, but it wasn't enough to create a DNA profile. Crucially, there is no evidence that Richard Allen's DNA was at the crime scene, or any other unknown male for that matter. In cross, defense attorney Jennifer O.J. pressed Bozinovski about why more testing wasn't done and why she was only looking for an unknown male DNA profile. ISP decided not to pursue further testing on hair, she says, because that would destroy the strands. Rather, they are preserving the evidence for evolving technology. She said, quote, "The DNA field is always advancing. There's always something new on the horizon," end quote. During jury selection, the defense revealed there was hair found in Abby's right hand that didn't match Richard Allen. The prosecution got ahead of this, getting samples from Libby's grandmother and sister just 2 weeks ago to compare. Bozinovski testified Monday that the hair is consistent with DNA from Kelsey German, Libby's sister. There seemed to also be some evidence contamination. Bozinovski found unknown male DNA at one point, but later determined it matched an employee from the ISP lab. Next on the stand was LaPorte County Sheriff's Deputy Major Patrick Cicero. He did a blood pattern analysis on the crime scene in February 2024. He says one thing is especially unusual. Abby's arms were up in almost a boxing position like this, and they were entirely free of blood at the crime scene. He has never seen that before, he says, and she probably didn't die instantly from the crime, so he says it's especially unusual that she didn't reach for the wound to her neck. Cicero testified over crime scene photos, another difficult afternoon for the victims' families in court, explaining how Abby seemed not to move, lying face up while she bled out, saturating the clothes on her back and the nearby ground, but not getting blood anywhere else. Libby, meanwhile, left several accumulations of blood at the scene. This means she was mobile when her neck was cut. At one point, she sat down as she bled, and she was likely dragged to her final position. In cross, the defense pushed Cicero to explain how blood moved from Abby's neck to her mouth. If she remained supine, she possibly could have been picked up. Before court let out Monday, the prosecution brought forth a motion to admit new evidence into the trial. That evidence, a Google search history from Richard Allen's email account. Judge Gall taking it all under advisement and will review case law before ruling on that motion. Trial picks up Tuesday, and we'll have all the updates on the latest testimony on air and online. Reporting outside the Carroll County Courthouse, I'm Annie Kate, ABC 57 News.